Or not, 2019 is coming. It's just around the corner. And with every new year comes new beginnings. Now I want to ask, what comes to mind when I say new beginnings? That's right, the greasy spoon down the street. But I'm talking about the different kind of new beginnings, the change that can come with a new year. And I never liked change. Growing up, I hated change. My grandparents can attest to that. It always sent me into a panic, and my wife is the same way. When she was growing up, she hated snow days because it was something different. It was out of her regular routine, and her mom likes to tell a story that when Megan was 9 years old and she had a snow day, Megan was just hysterical because she had to go to school because she had to take a test. We like our routines. How many of us are going to have to try to turn the 8 into a 9 in the next couple weeks when we're writing the date? Yeah, we like our routines. We get stuck in a rut. But the fact of life is change happens. And while it can be challenging, it can also be good. And so I want to look this morning at how do we change our minds about change. Well, I think what's needed is a good old-fashioned pep talk. And so if you're with me this morning and change and the thought of what could be new in the coming year makes you nervous, maybe it's time that you give yourself a pep talk. Sometimes you just need a good pep talk, right? To start your day, especially when you're facing changes and new things and uncharted territory. And that is exactly what God gives in the passage that I want to look at with you today in Joshua chapter 1. But before we turn there, let me set the stage for you. The people of Israel, the nation, was living in Egypt. They were working as slaves making bricks, which is not a very glorious job when you think of the fact that this is the group of people that God of the universe had chosen to be his special people. And here they are working hard making bricks. And so God raises up a leader named Moses. And Moses' job is to take them out of the land of Egypt and bring them into this new land that's going to be their new home. But this journey was not easy. It was full of problems. And they just get started on this journey, and they find out that they're being chased. Because it turns out the Egyptians are not going down without a fight, and they're hot on their tail. And so the people of Israel are running through the wilderness, and they get stopped in their tracks by a roadblock, the Red Sea. So there's this ocean in front of them, the Egyptian army's closing in behind them, and just when it looks like there's no hope, God does the miraculous, and he parts the waters, and the people pass through on dry land. And then it seems like only a couple days later, and the people totally forgot about how God miraculously provided for them then. And they start complaining because their stomachs are rumbling. And they think, man, we're going to die out here. We're going to starve to death. Is God even on our side? What's he doing? Does he have a plan? And then God graciously provides again miraculously by giving them food each day on their journey. And by this point, they're almost into this land that God has promised to them. They're on the doorstep. But before they go in, they say, we're going to send a group of spies into this land to scope it out and see if it really lives up to all the hype. And so they send 12 people in, and they come back with a report, and they say, the land's great. It's good for farming. There's plenty of water. It looks like a good place to make a new home. But there's just one problem. Somebody already lives there. And the people that live there are way bigger and tougher than we are. And so all of these spies, all of these people that scoped out the land, except for two of them, Joshua and Caleb, refuse to go in because they're afraid. And so, because of that, God has them wander around in the wilderness for 40 extra years before they can make any headway. Which leads us to the passage that I want to look at with you this morning. So if you've got a Bible, turn to Joshua chapter 1. It's about, I'd say, a fifth of the way into the Bible. If not, it's going to be on the screen behind me. And we're going to read the first 9 verses. It says, After the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord said to Joshua, the son of Nun, Moses' assistant, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now therefore arise, go over this Jordan, you and all this people, into the land that I am giving to them, to the people of Israel. Every place that the sole of your foot will tread upon, I have given to you, just as I promised to Moses. From the wilderness in this Lebanon, as far as the great river, the river Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites, to the great sea, toward the going down of the sun, shall be your territory. No man shall be able to stand before you all the days of your life. Just as I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will not leave you or forsake you. Be strong and courageous, for you shall cause this people to inherit the land that I swore to their fathers to give them. Only be strong and very courageous, being careful to do according to all the law that Moses my servant commanded you. Don't turn from the right hand or to the left, that you may have good success wherever you go. This book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do according to what's written in it. For then you will make your way prosperous, and you will have good success. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened, and do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. So standing here on the verge of a new chapter in their story, God gives Joshua a pep talk. They're about to face something totally new, a new land, new rhythm of life, new opportunities, new challenges. And God knows that our tendency when we're facing something new is to be worried and to be afraid. And so he gives them a pep talk. Now, do you know what the main point of his pep talk was? He repeated it about 3 times. Be strong and courageous, for I am with you wherever you go. Be strong. Remain resolute. Be brave. Stand tall. Don't fall to pieces. And these aren't just God's suggestions or his hopes for the people. This is a command. But how do we do that? Right? It's a lot easier said than done. Don't be afraid. Well, I think that if we dig in a little deeper, we can find some tools that Joshua had that he could use to help him be strong as they moved forward. And I think those same tools can help us today. So I've got 3 of them for you. The first one is you need to build a monument. If you keep reading in the book of Joshua, they start out on their journey. They're going to go into the land, and much like before, they face an obstacle. Except for this time, their obstacle isn't the Red Sea. Their obstacle is the Jordan River. So again, they've got a body of water that they can't cross that's blocking their path. And again, God does the miraculous, and he splits the waters again so that the people can pass through on dry land. Except for this time, Joshua does something a little different. He asks each family to have a representative pick a stone out of the middle of the riverbed and put all the stones together and build a monument. And this monument is supposed to remind the people of how God has helped them and brought them through to this point. And later on, when their kids are growing up and when they have grandkids and they're asking, what's this pile of rocks doing here? The people are able to give them an answer and to share the story of how God has helped them in the past. And if you look all through the Bible, especially in the Old Testament, there's lots of these rock piles these monuments that the people build. And eventually they get a name, which in Hebrew is Eben Netzer, which means stone of help. And I don't know about you, but my favorite Christmas story is Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. I either read it or watch it every Christmas. And it's rumored that Charles Dickens chose the name for his main character in A Christmas Carol based off of this Hebrew word, Eben Netzer, Ebenezer Scrooge. And he chose it because of the help that Ebenezer receives from the ghosts of Christmas to turn his life around. So I think that we all need a few more Ebenezers in our life. And I'm not talking about cranky old men. I'm talking about stones of help. Tangible reminders of the ways that God has helped us in the past so that we can have courage for the future. So maybe this week you need to brave the cold, go outside, find a rock, and write on it with a Sharpie, God is my helper. And put it somewhere so that you can see it and remember the ways that God's helped you. Or maybe you need to look back through your journals from this past year and spend some time reflecting on the ways that God has helped you and brought you through different things to this point. Or maybe some of you need to start journaling, and that can be your New Year's resolution for 2019, to take the time to record the ways you see God at work in your life. Or maybe some of you are just not journalers, you're never going to be journalers. That's fine. Maybe what you can do is before you throw away your 2018 calendar, take a couple minutes to flip back through it. Look at the things that you did this past year. Look at the people that you met with. And remember the ways that God has blessed you and been with you in this past year. And I know some of you have had a lot of trials in the last year. It's not been an easy year. You've had sickness yourself, or you've experienced loss. I still think that this could be a helpful thing to do, because oftentimes hindsight is 20/20, and it's not until we take the time to pause and look back that we see how God was at work. So take the time this week to build a monument. Now, the second thing is you need to keep good company on your journey. Look again with me at verse 5. God says this to Joshua, "Just as I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will not leave you or forsake you." And then again he repeats himself in verse 9. He says, "Do not be frightened and do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." God's drilling it in Joshua's head that he's not alone on this journey, right? He's in good company. God is going to be with Joshua. He's going to be with the people. And he's going to be with you and me. In fact, if you look all through the Bible, there's plenty of verses that say God is near to his people. We just celebrated Christmas. And one of the names that Jesus was given at his birth is Emmanuel, which means God is with us. This reminds me of a conversation that I had at a little family Christmas party this year with one of my distant cousins. His name was Jonathan, and he was 4 years old. He's probably my third or fourth cousin. And Megan and I were eating dinner, and he looks up at us and says, "Oh, meet my invisible friend. His name's Joshua." And I said, "Well, nice to meet you, Joshua. My name's Joshua, too." And Megan asked him, "Jonathan, what's your invisible friend's, what is he eating for dinner?" And he said, "Lettuce." We said, "Oh, like a salad?" "No, just lettuce." And we found out that was his favorite food. This invisible friend named Joshua's favorite food was lettuce. And we also found out that if you accidentally sit on Jonathan's invisible friend, he is not happy. And so we had to make sure to leave an empty seat for his invisible friend to sit in. And hear me right, I'm not saying that God is just the adult version of an invisible friend. God is more real than the chair that you're sitting in right now. He's more real than the lunch that you're looking forward to eating after church today. But what I am saying is that in a similar way as little Jonathan could find some comfort, maybe some courage in believing that he wasn't alone, we can find courage and comfort knowing that we're not alone, because God is going to be with us wherever we go. So, we need to keep good company. He's with us, and we see him most clearly when we look, when we open our eyes to the ways that he is all over the place around us. And so, in addition to finding your rock this week and building your monument, I want to challenge you to spend some time reading the Bible so that you're putting the right glasses on so that you can see the way God's at work around you. Read a devotional on your lunch this week. Pick up one of the In Touch ministries from Charles Stanley on the music stands on your way out. Or maybe turn the radio off on your drive home and listen to hear God speak. We need to remember the company that we keep on this journey. That's the second thing. Third thing, last thing, is that we need to say yes to God's best. Look again with me at verse 8. God says, "This book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do according to all that's written in it. For then you will make your way prosperous, and you'll have good success." So God asks us not just to remember his faithfulness in the past, not just to be aware of his nearness in the present, but he asks us to say yes to the best that he has for us in the future. Notice that it's when we put into practice what God has said to us in Scripture that success follows. So, we need to say yes to what God's best is. And notice, God may call you to do something that's uncomfortable or unfamiliar. But are you ready to say yes to him? Are you willing to give up what's good in order to say yes to what's better? There's times in life when God might speak to you and ask you to make a change. When we look forward to 2019, there's going to be a lot of new beginnings. There's going to be a lot of new opportunities, and I'm excited when I think of the potential that inSpirit has to reach the community and to make disciples. But I can guarantee you it's going to come with change. It's not always going to be comfortable. It's not always going to be what has been familiar. But it is always better to abandon all of our good plans in order to follow God's better plans. So, what is God asking you to change this year? Maybe like Pastor Randy said to the kids, he's asking you to make a new friend at work. Maybe he's asking you to move somewhere new. Maybe he's asking you to give to a new ministry. Maybe he's asking you to grow your children's faith by starting a family devotional or serving together. Maybe he's asking you to make the biggest change, the change that comes when we turn away from our old life of sin and selfishness and we turn to the new life that Christ offers. And let me be clear, God's best plan for one person and his best plan for another person might be different. So regardless of the specifics of what he's asking you to do, we need to say yes. We need to say yes to the best that God has for us this year.